Alright guys, here's going to be some fun stuff. Below the base attack bonus black bar, there is two black bars. One says CMB and the other one below it says CMD. CMB refers to your combat maneuver bonus. In this game, Pathfinder, there is so much you can do in combat. It's just a plethora of things. You can trip people, disarm people, you can grapple, you can overrun, you can sunder, you can try to break their weapon. All these maneuvers have such different results that it's really amazing. So obviously CMB stands for your combat maneuver bonus. So next to it you see the total. You see the base attack bonus. That's what we just talked about last video. So again, going back to the barbarian, at level 1 your base attack bonus is 1. Okay? And next to the base attack bonus box it says strength modifier, which is obviously whatever you rolled your strength. Next is your size modifier. Okay? So this is when you roll your dice. You know, let's say you're a barbarian. I'm just using it a lot because it's just a combat-oriented class. You go, all right, John, I want to, I see this great tall elf with his double-sided axe. I want to trip him. I go, okay, you're going to give me a combat maneuver roll. You're going to give me a d20 roll, and then you're going to roll whatever your combat maneuver base is to the roll. So it's sort of like for spellcasters in 5e when you had your spell attack modifier. It's kind of like that. So, you know, you roll your dice. You say, let's say, you know, let's just say your combat maneuver your combat maneuver bonus is a total of, let's say it's a total of 6. Okay, 6. You go, alright, I'm going to roll my dice. I want to trip this elf. Alright, and you roll a 10 on your die. So you get a 16. And let's say this elf's armor, he's not wearing any armor. His armor class is 12. Then I'll say, yeah, you... I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Sorry. Okay. Let's say you want to trip that elf as a barbarian. You roll your dice. You know, you roll a 10, but you add your combat maneuver bonus, which is a 6 in total for this example. So you roll a total of a 16. This will go up against not the AC of the opponent. I'm sorry, it's not the AC. It's against his combat maneuver defense, which is the below box. Okay, the below box of this character sheet I'm looking at. So now we're going to get there. Combat maneuver defense, CMD. It's your total. It's your base attack bonus, was what was on your class sheet. It's your strength modifier, your dexterity modifier, and then your size modifier plus 10. So let's reverse the scenario. Let's say the elf is attacking the barbarian, and the barbarian's his combat maneuver defense, his CMD, let's just pretend it's 18. Okay, this elf with his double weapon is going to be like, I want to disarm him because, you know, I can. And he rolls like a 5 on his dice, and he adds his combat maneuver bonus, his CMB, and he rolls like a 3, so it's a total of an 8. Well, the barbarian's combat maneuver defense is 18, so he's like, pah, like, fuck that shit, you're not going to be able to take this weapon out of my hand. And the guy's like, oh, great. So combat maneuver bonus and combat maneuver defense is really vital for melee users. You know, in this game, it's not just about how fast I can do damage. There's crowd control. You can knock people's weapons out. You can even break their weapons in their hands, leaving them with just fighting with their hands. And maybe they're not ready for that. There's so much versatility to combat in Pathfinder, it'll blow your mind. So that's combat maneuver bonus and combat maneuver defense. Sorry for getting it mixed up. Combat maneuver bonus is, once you add it all up, it's a total that you add to your D20 roll. Combat maneuver defense is like a separate AC against maneuvers. Okay? So when I bought the bestiary, every single thing has a combat maneuver defense, a CMD. Everything has it. So everything has, in this game, defensive-wise, it has a total AC, it has a flat-footed AC, it has a touch AC, and it has a CMD, a combat maneuver defense. These are your 4 permanent defensive qualities to your being. So I hope that makes sense. That's a big thing. The combat maneuver stuff is a big deal in this game. 5e, they kind of removed it. I can see why, because it's a lot to, remember, but it's really fun, and it changes the game. I mean, you don't have to just race to kill something any longer. Now you can plan something. You can now have a sort of diplomatic approach to something, like, these 2 bandits are fighting you. The barbarian easily slaps a sword out of his hand, and the ranger is able to pull out a dagger and, stab the pommel of the weapon of the other bandit, and his weapon just shatters, and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry." You know what I mean? It gives you more options in the game than just, kill. All right, guys. So next, I'm going to be going to skills, which is the biggest thing. We're not going to do weapons yet. That's going to be later, but we're going to do skills now. Okay? So it's going to be big. So I'm going to use the whiteboard. All right, hang on. All right, guys. So this one is going to be a little bit bigger. And there's Eddie. He's right behind me. So, okay. As you see on your character sheet, skills is a huge thing. It shouldn't be too intimidating, but I know it can look like it. So we have acrobatics, appraise, bluff, climb, craft, 3 crafts, diplomacy, disable device, disguise, escape artist, fly, handle animal, heal, intimidate, many knowledges, linguistics, perception, 2 performs, 2 professions, ride, sense motive, sleight of hand, spellcraft, stealth, survival, swim, use magical device. And then below there's a check mark that says class skill, and there's a star that says trained only, as well as conditional modifiers and languages. So for this, I'm going to use the barbarian again. Okay. So the first skill we have is acrobatics. Okay. Actually, before I do that, let me tell you what all of them do. All of these skills, what they do. Acrobatics is very important. It's used for, obviously, like jumping, running, balancing, leaping over people, moving past people. It's in 5e you have athletics, but in acrobatics, it's athletics and acrobatics are one. It's just your ability to do so much athletic type of behavior. Appraise is a really interesting ability. You know how you guys always fight over magical items and things like that? Well, appraise, you're able, in this game, I'm not going to be able to say anything is magical unless it's already been identified as magic. And this way, I'll say you find 3 short swords and something in the treasure chest, and they're like, is it magic? And I go, you give me an appraise check. You might be able to see if it is magical or not. Also, when going through the treasure chest, whoever has the highest appraise roll can get the best item first. Also, when you go to like a vendor or like a market, and a guy's selling you a dagger for 50 gold, well, you can roll an appraise check to see how much it should be worth. Next is bluff, which is obviously lying. Climb is self-explanatory. 3 crafts, it just gives you 3 in case you want to have multiple abilities to make things. If you want to make your character like a weaponsmith, an arrow builder, something like that. Diplomacy is sort of the persuasion. There's a lot to do with it. You can talk things down. Disable device is the ability to pick locks, sabotage things, make locks. Next is disguise, which is even if you're not wearing a disguise kit, you can muddy your face, mess your hair up, and I want to make myself look a little different. I go, all right, well, give me a disguise check. You feel like you're totally different. You really nail it, or it just looks like you threw shit on your face and you look the same except with shit on your face. Escape artist is your natural, your skill ability to get out of locks and iron, moving through a crept tunnel. It's sort of like your escape, I gotta get out. Next is fly, which you don't need to really worry about that as of right now. It's sort of like vehicle maneuvering, and of course flying. For druids, it might be a little different because you're flying, but basically, just to let you guys know, it doesn't mean you can fly. Obviously, nobody level 1 can fly, but when you do get to the point in this game where you can fly, you realize that flying is really difficult. If you want to move right on your mount or your Pegasus or something, everything has a fly check. Everything has a fly check. It's not an easy thing to do. Handle animal is self-explanatory. Talking down an animal. When you're riding mounts, that's different. But it's calming animals down. It's understanding them. It can be a very useful skill. Heal is very similar to a medicine check. It can stabilize people. It can do also other things, like diagnose what's going on. Intimidate is self-explanatory. Now, here are the big ones. Knowledge, Arcana, Dungeoneering, Engineering, Geography, History, Local, Nature, Nobility, Planes, and Religion. Each of these things are separate. Just because you have proficiency in one of them doesn't mean you have it in all of them. I'm not going to go into each and every one of them, but they're very important. They're really good. They're very vital to the game. If you have a party full of people that none of you have knowledge, picked knowledge skills, it's going to hurt you greatly. I'm not going to go over all of them. You guys can Google that yourselves. You can find that easily. Or if you have the book, just read it. It's not that large. But I just want to go over one thing. Arcana knowledge is not like, oh, I want to check for magic stuff. I want to see if there's any magic in this room. That's not how Pathfinder Dungeons 3.5, 3.7 does the game. In 5e, whenever you guys walk into a room and I'm like, oh, you see blue lights everywhere, like glowing lights, you go, I want to roll for an Arcana check. And I go, yeah, you feel magic. No, I can't do that any longer. Now, if you just want to see if there's magic in this room, even though I've described to you something that looks like magic, you need to use a detect magic skill to know exactly that this is magic. Otherwise, I can only just describe to you what the room or what the weapon looks like, and you meta-wise, you players know, oh yeah, this is probably magic, but your character doesn't know, and I can't describe to you what kind of magic it is. Knowledge Arcana checks don't check for arcane magic. It checks for arcane traditions, symbols, markings. So if you go into like a root cellar and below you see 4 dead cultists and like a bunch of horse skulls and, you know, goat blood painted in pentagrams, you know, you're like, what the fuck is this? I'm gonna roll an Arcana check to see. And I go, okay, yeah, this has got to be some sort of demonic summoning circle that you can think of. Though no magic is wafting from it, you're just physically, the knowledge Arcana check, all knowledge skills are physically looking at something and being like, okay, that's magic. That has, it's incorporated with some sort of magic. It's not just like a painting. This is something that was used for magic things. Okay? Linguistics are understanding languages. You know, even though I can read Draconic, I can speak Abyssal, blah 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 blah. Yeah, you might know it, but I might have you roll a linguistics check to see if, you know, you might not know the dialect of this. It might be written in a code. Linguistics is important, unless you have, you know, like a spell like Comprehend Languages and you can just read it. Even if you can read Dwarvish, it might be Dwarvish that your grandfather knew, that you don't know. And you need to roll linguistics to see if you can decipher it. That's pretty useful. Perform is mostly a bard thing, unless you guys roleplay-wise want to do it. You know, like a bard, for example, can fill in the blank and say perform. He's good at juggling. He's good at storytelling. You would put that there. Ride is important. Ride is obviously mounts. Riding a horse. In this game, man, they are not forgiving with horses. Like, yeah, you can get on a horse, but you ain't gonna go forward. I mean, meta-wise, in real life, have any of you guys ever been on a horse before? You can't just jump on a horse and, like, figure it out. It's fucking hard. So, in this game, riding a mount is very, big. And there will be horses in my game that you guys will get. Sense motive is pretty self-explanatory. It's insight. See if someone's lying. See if someone's not telling the truth. It's also called, there's something called a hunch, which is you get to basically roll a d20 because you're like, you know, let's say you're around the corner and you hear like dum 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 dum, and you go, John, GM, I want to roll a hunch. Like, what does this sound like to me? And I go, all right, roll, give me a sense motive, you know, roll. Give me a hunch roll. And you get a natural 20, and I go, you get a strong feeling that this is like some sort of warrior song coming from over there. Hunch is like a cheating way to get the GM to tell you something. Sleight of hand is obviously stealing, sneaking things. Spellcraft is a very important ability in this game. I'm not going to go through all of it because it's pretty large, but in this game, all magic is quiet. You know, I don't mean like literally, like, you know, because it's the verbal components to magic. But in this game, I can be like, yeah, the wizard does something with his hands and a fireball, or, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Let me rephrase. He does something with his hands and a great beast of fire erupts out of his hands, splashing into you. Obviously, you know this as like a fireball. Maybe it's not, though. Maybe it's like Phoenix, the spell Phoenix or something like that. But in this game, I can't tell you what the spell is. I mean, obviously you know when you're charmed, but it may be a different kind of charm spell, you know. So you would roll a spellcraft roll to identify what kind of spell it is. And there's other things too. But spellcraft is a pretty vital skill to have, which is awesome. Next is stealth, which is self-explanatory. Something to teach you guys about stealth in this game. If you are in a well-lit room, like if you're, you know, in a dungeon and it's well-lit, and there's only like small boxes or like, you know, little barrels, you can't stealth. Like, you just like legit can't stealth. unless you're a smaller creature, then I could find wiggle room for you to stealth. Obviously, also if you're in a radius where a player has a torch and you're still hanging out by them, it's like a 10-foot radius, 15-foot radius, you can't stealth either. You would have to go into the darkness away from the torchlight and be hidden, which would impose penalties to your character because you're in the dark. You can't see anything. You can only see your friends traveling with the torchlight. You've left that zone and are now just confused and it's dark. Then there's survival. Oh, did I miss perception? Sorry, I think I missed perception. Perception is self-explanatory. Survival is like tracking. It's foretelling weather. It's understanding tracks, beasts, things like that. It's very important too. Next is swim. Swim is obviously self-explanatory. And last is use magic device. Use magic device is pretty big. If you find a wand or a magical item that's not a sword or like a melee weapon, like you get a staff, you get a wand, you get a book that you want to use in combat that you haven't attuned yourself to yet, because it takes a long time to attune in this game, then I have to ask you to give me a use magical device roll each time you want to use something from it. This also applies to other items like a magical loot. You want to use it, well, you're going to have to give me a use magic device skill. And there's other things. Spellcraft and use magic device have a list of things that they can do each. So it's pretty vital. Conditional modifiers are just something that you can write in if you have to add something. And then last is languages, which, remember in the beginning I said when you have a high intelligence, you get bonus languages. And that's where you would write that down. So now we're going to talk about how to fill this out, now that I've given you a lengthy description of each skill. And you can fast forward, I guess it's too late now, but you can fast forward through all the stuff that I just said. Okay, so the top one, we have a square that says acrobatics. Next to it says total bonus equals dex, which is the label of what the skill uses. And then it says ability modifier, ranks, and miscellaneous modifiers. Okay, so I've written this out. We're going to use a barbarian. So acrobatics is right here, right? A barbarian starts with 4 skill ranks plus his intelligence modifier. So even as a barbarian or a fighter or a paladin, having higher intelligence means that you get more skill ranks per level. Eddie? So, when you find a skill that you want to put a rank into, you would put a check in this box like that, right? And you would do this 3 more times for a barbarian. If you want to know how many ranks you get per level, again, you got to go to your class sheet in your book. It sucks, but that's the only way to do it, or you can go online and find out that way too. So for a barbarian, it's page 31. Below it says skill ranks per level 4 plus intelligence modifier. Where it says class skills, if you remember a couple of videos ago, I said the barbarian's class skills are acrobatics, climb, craft, handle animal, intimidate, knowledge, perception, ride, survival, and swim. Okay? So here I have acrobatics and disable device. That list I just said doesn't pertain to disable a device. It has acrobatics, climb, craft, handle animal, intimidate, knowledge, perception, ride, survival, and swim. Class skills on your class page in the book, that list, means that this is what the barbarian, the paladin, the cleric, whatever, excels at once trained. When you put a check into acrobatics and you're a barbarian, you know, normally, let's just say you haven't put a check in anything. You're just filling out your character sheet. You would normally add your ability modifier, you know, your dex. Let's say your dex is 14. So it's a +2. Yeah, it's a +2. So you would put a +2 onto your ability modifier in that chart, right? And again, you haven't put any ranks yet in anything, you haven't picked any classes, you're just filling out the whole chart. Now though, you're putting ranks in, you're putting what skill proficiencies you're picking. Rank is just your skill proficiency. So you're level 1, and you get, as a barbarian, you get 4 plus your intelligence modifier. And let's just pretend that your intelligence modifier is 10, is 0. You just have 4 skill ranks. I, as a barbarian, am going to put 1 skill rank into my chart for acrobatics. And if you remember, acrobatics is one of the class skills that a barbarian has on page 31. At any time that you put a rank into one of your class skills, so right now I have this filled out as, see, so this is acrobatics. I put a check here because I'm a barbarian, and I have a 14 for my ability score, so I have a 2 dexterity bonus, and then I put 1 rank into it, right? That miscellaneous modifier, it gets a 3 in it. It gets a 3. So I picked this class skill, acrobatics. I'm a barbarian, so I naturally excel at this because I put a rank into one of my class skills. I get a 3 there. So now my total my total acrobatic skill bonus is a 6. Which is really good. Okay. Now below, I put disable device, right? There's also a star next to disable device. When I told you guys the barbarian class skills, on page 31 for him, he doesn't have disable device. So, but let's just say, alright, I'm a barbarian, you know, I've been dungeoneering a lot, I want to be able to break into locks and stuff like that. So again, disable device uses a dexterity modifier, so it's 2. I put a rank into it. Though it's not one of my class skills, it will look like this. You see, my ability score is a 2. I have a 1 rank, but my miscellaneous modifiers is 0 because it's not one of my naturally excelling skills as a barbarian. Okay, so because acrobatics is a natural class skill that I have, when I put a rank into it, I get a +3. But because disable device, which I should probably put a check mark next to it, because I picked it. But because disable device is not on my class sheet, I don't get the miscellaneous modifier of a +3. I just get the rank and the ability modifier, which leaves me at a total for disable device skill as 3. Okay? So in this game, it's really normal to have very high skill abilities at level 1 sometimes, especially if you're like a bard or a rogue, right? Now there's 2 more things I need to tell you about this. One is your ranks, right? Rank is just a funny word for proficiency. It's your level of proficiency, right? So if you're level 1, right, and I'm a barbarian, and I have an intelligence score of 10, So I have no additional modifier to my intelligence score, which means for a barbarian on page 31, I only have 4 ranks to use to put into my skills. When I put in a rank to each of these, the max rank it can be is 1, because I'm level 1. When I become level 2, I get 4 more ranks because I'm a new level. It doesn't mean that I can make acrobatics turn into, I want my acrobatics to be level like level 5. So it's already 1 right now, but now I'm level 2. I'm gonna dump all 4 ranks into acrobatics. In this game, Pathfinder, it checks you by the highest rank that you can put into a skill is your level. And that's a way that it doesn't make you get overpowered. So at level 2, the highest rank I can make acrobatics as a barbarian is a 2. Okay? So I gotta spend the other 3 ranks on something else. And another thing, when you get level 2, and let's say you want to put another rank into acrobatics, that 3 doesn't turn into a 6. It stays as a 3. It's just a one-time super bonus to your class skill. That's all. So the 3 is there forever. If it's a class skill of yours on your character page in the book, and you put a rank into that, you get a one-time benefit of a +3. But otherwise, if you become level 2 and you put another rank as a barbarian into acrobatics, this rank will change to 2, and the only thing different will be this 6 turns into a 7. That's only for barbarians and other classes that can use acrobatics. Okay? I know it's a lot to remember, but it's really easy once you just understand the system. It's not a big deal. So again, whatever class skill you have, Bard has like everything. Like a Bard can do basically anything, and when you put a rank, a proficiency into that skill, you check that box. You add your ability modifier. You put however many ranks that you're putting into that skill, and it can only be a maximum of your current level. So, level 1, you put 1 rank. If you're level 2, you can put a maximum of 2 ranks in. And if it's class skill of yours, it's on your character page that says it is your class skill, you get to put this +3 for a one-time offer. Okay? So it's pretty easy. Once you get it, I know it's a little hard to understand, but one last thing. So you got all that down. Did you notice that by disable device, I put a weird-looking star right here? When you look at your character sheet, you'll notice that skills like disable device, handle animal, knowledge, linguistics, profession, sleight of hand, spellcraft, use magical device have a star next to it. And at the very bottom next to the class skill checkmark box, it says trained only. You have to put a rank into those skills that I have said in order to use them. So if you're a barbarian and you did not put a rank into disable a device, you cannot disable a device. You don't know how. You just really don't know how. Even though you have an ability modifier that you can add and you didn't put a rank, but you have just a total of 2, you still can't do it. It sucks. But that's why it's good to have a party. So everyone has different abilities. People can shine in moments that other people can. Not everyone's going to roll perception skills, Not everybody can roll disable device skills. Only certain players can do that, and it's really cool. It's rough, but it's cool. So, yeah, if it has a star next to it, you have to put a rank into it if you want to use it. Even if it's not in your class skill. So for a barbarian, he doesn't get the +3 to his disable device, but there's a star next to it. But if the barbarian really wants to, when he's making his character, or later down the road, wants to be able to pick locks and all that stuff, he can put a check in there, and now he can use it. Same with linguistics, use magic device, spellcraft, sleight of hand. You need a rank in the starred skills to actually be able to use it in the game. This is because it's to let everyone have their moment in the game. Alright? So I know that's a big thing. What I said is skills is huge. And I guess it is, but it's really not hard once you get it. It's just not a big deal. Ranks are, I know it's these different words, but ranks are just your individual proficient level. So I'm proficient, I'm like rank 1, I'm rank 2, I'm rank 3, I'm rank 4, I'm rank 5, I'm rank 6. It's not hard. And I'm really good at this. I can help you remember how to do it. So I hope that you understand ranks or skills, how to total your skills, what skills you can't use unless you put a rank into it. You understand that miscellaneous modifier, why there's a +3 there, why there's not a +3 there. Remember though, you need to use the book or use the website if it has it. If it doesn't, I don't know what to do. You might have to just use a friend's book. But you need to know that book because it has the class skills for each class. Obviously, like I said, Bard and Rogue is going to have this huge list. Barbarian, Fighter will be mostly like geared towards combat-based skills. But no matter, even if your class skills for Barbarian and Fighter are combat-oriented, it doesn't mean that you can't put a class skill into Bluff or into Religion. You can. You just won't get that +3, and it'll take you more time to get higher than, say, a Cleric for Religion. You know what I mean? So, alright guys. I'm going to think about the next video I post, but this one was a long one because it's the biggest one. Alright guys, this is going to be a short video. I'm going to do it a little bit later, but for the next ones, but I'm going to do this one right now. So we're still on the first page of the character sheet, and the only things that we haven't done so far are the weapons. Those many lists of weapons that you can have. In the boxes it says the weapon, the attack bonus, the critical, the type, the range, the ammunition, and the damage. We are going to skip that for right now. And we're going to go to the second page, where it says AC, spells, gear, feats, special abilities, total weight, money, experience points, and then the domain specialty school. This is just going to be a little short video about feats. Feats are, you get basically every certain levels. When your character advances levels, at level 1 you start with 1 feat, at level 2 you get nothing, at level 3 you get a second feat, at level 4 you get an ability score increase, level 5 you get a third feat, and so on and so on. When you get an ability score increase, it's literally the way it sounds. You get 1 number higher in your ability score. So if you have like an 18, you get a 19. It's just 1. That's because in this game, feats make up for that. Feats is huge. I'm only using core rulebook feats, so nobody go online and look at other feats because there's so many. And the problem is that when you use feats that aren't in the core rulebook, the feats usually do something that was given to you through a power through another book. So stick to core rulebooks. Feats can do so much stuff. You will literally get lost reading feats. For tomorrow, I really want you to make sure you know your class. And since you only need to know 1 feat unless you're a human and a fighter, try to read as much feats as you can and pick one. Okay? Like we said before, adding a dexterity modifier to your damage rolls, weapon finesse is pretty good, improved initiative. For spellcasters out there, this is important. I am making it so that one component's pouch can last you 3 days. And then eventually on the 4th day you open it up and all the ingredients have dried out and become unusable. You can hold a maximum of 5 component pouches at a time. So if one of them dies out, you can buy a new one, but some stores won't have it. It's obviously a magic-based thing. If you go to like a poor village or like a city and you can't find your way around, you might not be able to find a components pouch store or things like that. There's a feat called the Eschew Materials feat, which makes it so you don't need any components at all. This is a good feat to have. I am fully using it. The only thing about it is though, is that when you're looking at the spells that you're picking, if there's any gold or money, and not like, you know, a bronze coin or something, if it says like 5 GP, 10 GP, 185 GP, even though you have the Eschew Materials feat, you still need to provide that money to cast a spell, just like in 5e. Those are just founding rules of Magic and Dungeons and Dragons. Okay? And then I forgot to say that earlier, when you're picking your race, you'll have a lot of stuff that you get. Like dwarves, no matter what armor they wear, their limited movement is always the same. You know, gnomes and elves get bonuses against saves from spells and poison. I mean, dwarves get the save against poison. There's special abilities, dark vision. There's more things. Below where feats is, that's where you put that. You put your racial special abilities, and then eventually you have class special abilities too. So I'm going to take a little break, and then we're going to talk about weapons, armor, and your damage. Alright. Hey guys. So this is going to be a little video or a set of videos that help you guys figure out how to make character sheets. So I'm just using like a basic camera, so you're not really going to be able to see what I'm going to be doing like on the paper, but I'm going to speak really slowly from top to bottom, and I'll say, okay, this is the thing, and then, you know, you guys can follow along. So when looking at the character sheet, from the very top, you see character name, alignment, player. Character name is obviously whatever your character's guy's name is. Your alignment is self-explanatory, the player. Character level beneath character name, it's that long because in case you multi-class, if let's say you're a barbarian and you know you're a barbarian level 4, you'd write barbarian level 4 and then comma, I'm multi-classing a rogue, so you'd be barbarian 4, rogue 1, etc. Deity, you can leave that blank unless you for some reason follow a god, maybe like you're a cleric or a paladin, you'd fill that in. Homeland, if you want to write in where you're from, that's fine. Race is self-explanatory. Size, though, is not. So size in this game is a big deal. If you are a half-orc, if you're a human, if you're an elf, if you're a half-elf, if you're a dwarf, and things like that, your character size is a medium. So you'd write an M in there. If you're a gnome or a halfling, you would write a small s. Gender is self-explanatory, age is self-explanatory, height, weight, hair, eyes, all self-explanatory. In this game, size is a big deal. It's going to be affecting a lot of the other boxes in this character sheet. Basically, size affects your AC, your armor class, and your combat maneuvering, combat defense, which we'll get to later. So then going down to HP, right below race, total is how much health you have total, obviously, and that DR box stands for damage resistance. This is something that you guys don't need to worry about right now. That's higher level things. Next to DR is the black box that says speed. In that first horizontal box, it says base speed, feet, and squares. Obviously, if you are, you know, a human, you have 30 feet, which means that's 5, 10, 15, 25, 30. You have 6 squares. Next to that base speed box is with armor box. You'll see later that when you purchase the equipment that you want to wear, the armor you want to wear, it might affect your speed, and it'll say in the details. That big square box says temporary modifiers, you'll leave that blank. Beneath the base speed, it'll say fly maneuverability, keep that blank. Swim feet, your swim is always half your movement of your normal speed. So if your base speed is 30 feet, your swim feet is 15 feet. But if you're wearing armor that makes your speed 20 feet, then your swim speed will be 10 feet. Climb is the same deal, and burrow, you can leave that blank. So that's the very first part. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about below where it says actually character sheet, it has your ability scores. You're going to see strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma in the black boxes. Next to that is ability score. Next to that is ability modifier. Next to that is temporary adjustment. And the last one is temporary modifier. For temporary adjustment and temporary modifier, you're going to be leaving that blank for this part of the video. Temporary adjustment, you won't need to worry about that. Temporary modifier is if you have like a blessing or a spell cast on you that lasts longer than 24 hours, that does something to your ability score, then that's where you'll put it. So now I'm going to talk to you guys about ability scores, because in this game ability scores are different than 5e. So try to detach your brain from 5e and listen to this. So strength in this game, well, all stats in this game are important. It's not like in 5e, if you're a rogue, you just worry about dex and con. This game, every stat is important. So the strength, your modifier for strength applies to your melee attack rolls, melee. It also applies to your damage rolls when using a melee weapon, a thrown weapon that includes a sling, climb and swim checks, and strength checks. Like things like breaking down doors or forcing things open. So this includes that if you use a rapier or a dagger rogues, then you still need to use your strength to apply to your damage. I mean, imagine strength is how hard you do something. Now, if you have a feat called the weapon finesse feat, which we'll get to later, instead of using your strength modifier to your damage, because you chose that feat, you can use it to your dexterity. Dexterity will be your damage modifier. But just basic, simply, strength determines how much damage you do. When you use a offhand attack, so if you're using two hands and one's your primary and one's your offhand, your damage bonus is only half your strength bonus. So, let's say your strength is 20, so you have a +5. If you are attacking with a short sword in your primary hand, your damage modifier is +5. If you're using a short sword in your other hand, your offhand, then your damage modifier is not 5 anymore, it's 2. So remember that. Dexterity applies to ranged attack rolls, including attacks with just attack rolls, with bows, crossbow, throwing axes, and ranged spells. So dexterity spellcasters, this applies to you greatly. Even when using, remember this is just attack rolls. When you use a bow, you don't apply any damage modifier at all, because you're just simply holding the arrow and then letting it go. You're not like shooting the arrow and then making the arrow itself like and like trying to hit somebody extra hard. It's just when you're using a bow or a ranged weapon, there's no damage modifier to it. Just imagine, I mean, like when we said strength, it's how hard you're hitting something. You're using your strength with it, but with dexterity, you're just letting the weapon do a lot of the work. So there's no modifier for that. Dexterity also affects your AC. It also affects your reflex saving throws, which are dexterity saving throws, which we'll get to later. And it also applies to skills like acrobatics, disable device, escape, artist, fly or ride, sleight of hand, stealth. When you look at the skills, that big long list, you can see the ability name that's next to it. But remember, dexterity doesn't apply to damage rolls. You don't get a damage modifier from your bows and all that stuff. Only strength does, unless you pick a feat that lets you apply dexterity bonus to damage. And also spellcasters, your ranged attack includes from your spells too, so that's important. It gets confusing, those two, because we're so used to 5e where we only maintained a one stat, but in this game all stats are important. Constitution is a little easier. It's how much your hit die is, and fortitude saving throws. So fortitude in this game is things like resisting poison, disease, and similar threats. It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, intelligence, again, every stat is important. So intelligence your intelligence modifier applies to when you make your character how many bonus languages you start in the game. It also determines the number of skill points gained at each level. For your character always gets at least one skill point per level. So skill points in this game, for those of you who have the book, when you go and flip to your class, when you look at the title of your class, you look at the description, alignment, hit die, and then you get down to the second bolded word. It says class skills. It'll show you a list of skills that, let's say, your barbarian is possibly proficient at. So it's acrobatics, climb, craft, handle, intimidate, knowledge, perception, ride, survival, and swim. And then below it in bold it says skill ranks per level, 4 plus your intelligence modifier. It doesn't mean that you have all of these skills. It means you can pick from these skills and you'll get an extra bonus, and I'll get to that in the next video. But remember, the higher intelligence, the more skills that you start with the beginning of the game, and and how much you get each level. And to find out how many skills you get per level, you need to go into the book and look where it says class skills. It'll say how much you can have. So let me get back to the page. Okay. Wisdom. So wisdom applies to, and also, intelligence also applies to appraise, craft, knowledge, linguistics, and spellcraft skill checks. Yeah, I'll get to this last part in a minute. So wisdom is important for clerics and druids. Intelligence is important for wizards, obviously. So wisdom applies to will saving throws, which were wisdom saving throws. So will saving throws are for negating, charm, enchantment, fear, spells like that. Wisdom applies to heal, perception, profession, sense motive, and survival checks. So those are important. Last we have charisma. And charisma, in a sense, is sort of not a dump stat, but it's either a commitment or not. If you want to be meta, then you might forego charisma if you want to be something else. But if you want to do charisma, then you need to dive into it, is what I'm saying. Charisma is used for many skills: bluff, diplomacy, disguise, handle, animal, intimidate, perform, and use magical device checks. It represents your attempt to influence others. For paladins and clerics, it helps channel the energy, difficulty class, or DCs for harming undead foes. And yeah, so basically with the end of this video, with this part, your ability scores are all important. Remember, strength applies to your melee attack rolls, and the modifier 2 to your damage rolls. Strength is how hard you're putting behind your attack. Dexterity is used for things like armor class and it's also the modifiers put to your ranged attack abilities. How well you can aim, how well you can hit. It doesn't apply to your damage because you're letting the bow, you're letting the crossbow do all the work. You're not putting that oomph behind the missile that's being shot. However, and also it's also equally, ranged attacks are equally important with dexterity for spellcasters who use spells like Scorching Ray, Searing Light, Chill Touch, things that are like a ranged attack. It's equally important, so remember to keep an open mind about all the skills you choose to use. If you want to look into feats later, you can exchange, like using a rapier or a dagger. If you choose the feat, Weapon Finesse, instead of using your strength modifier to do the damage roll, you can use your dexterity modifier. But that's only with a feat, that's not just simply like that. So, one last thing. This is very important, and I'll reiterate this tomorrow. On page 117, there's this big table called Table 1 through 3, Ability Modifiers and Bonus Spells. If you're a wizard and you have a certain intelligence score, so let's just pretend that you're pretty damn good, and you start level 1 as, let's just say you have a 20 intelligence ability score, very high. So the modifier is obviously +5. When you go across the chart, under first, bonus spells per day by spell level, first you see that there is a 2 behind it, or 2 in that chart. There's a 1 for second level, there's 1 for third level, there's 1 for fourth level, and there's 1 for fifth level. This means for intelligence score, only if you're a wizard, you have this many bonus spell slots, which is really good. It kind of makes it so you have obviously more spells. However, these numbers on this chart only apply to what spells you can cast. So because you're level 1 and you have a 20 in your intelligence score, you have 2 bonus spell slots for first level. The 1 for second, the 1 for third, the 1 for fourth, 1 for fifth. You have it, but it's not accessible because you can't cast a higher spell at that level. This also is for druids and clerics for wisdom. If your wisdom is a 20 score, then you have an additional 2 first level spell slots, 1 additional second level spell slot, and the same thing as what I said. And then for charisma based characters like sorcerers and bards, this applies. So it's pretty cool because you start the game having possibilities of having additional spell slots, even though what your class chart says. So remember that's page 17. So when you're making your character and you realize how many spells you actually have more depending on your main spell casting ability. So wizard, intelligence, druid and cleric, wisdom, bard and sorcerer, charisma. So last thing is just, again, every ability score is important. I said charisma is a dump. It's kind of a dump, it's kind of not, especially for bard or sorcerer, but every skill is important. Even for spellcasters, every skill is important. You don't want to have a negative, a 9, a -1 ability modifier as a sorcerer, and you can barely carry, 2 swords without being encumbered. And we'll get to that way later. So in the last video, we did ability modifiers, and you understand the importance of it. We're now just going to go to the quick, big horizontal box next to it. It says wounds and current HP. Obviously, that's, what you're at. Non-lethal damage, that's just this little separate part to show you how much non-lethal damage you've taken. Now we get below to initiative. Obviously, the first box says total. The next box has an equal sign to dexterity modifier, self-explanatory. And then the third box says miscellaneous modifier. You're going to see the word miscellaneous modifier a lot. Miscellaneous modifier means one of 3 things usually. So it's in the realm of one of 3 things. It's either a feat that you have chosen that gives you a bonus to it. It's sometimes a bonus you get in skills, or it could be something else. But just remember, miscellaneous modifier is not hard. It's a feat. It's some sort of bonus that you receive through creating your character. So, for example, like initiative, you might choose the feat that gives you extra initiative. That's where you put it. So now we get below to AC. The first box next to the black box, it says AC is total, self-explanatory. Then it equals to 10, like in 5e. So then it says plus your armor bonus. Armor bonus is obviously the choice of armor that you wear. Next to that is plus shield bonus. So that's the shield that you wear. And the next is plus your dexterity modifier. As I said, dexterity affects your AC. Next to that is size modifier. So if you're a gnome or a halfling, you get +1 there. But if you're orc, human, half-elf, elf, dwarf, you get a +0. It's very normal to put +0s in your chart. It's very normal, so don't feel afraid about that. Natural armor is like when Jamie was a lizard folk. You have natural scales, sort of other physiological defense. I don't think any of the races that I've allowed have natural armor, but you might be cast with a spell that provides that. But you can leave that blank. Deflection modifier, you can block that. You can leave it blank for right now. That's mostly spells or certain things that you might receive. Definitely not a level 1. And then last is miscellaneous modifier, which again could be a feat, could be something that is a spell, but you can leave it blank. Leaving it blank is fine. I mean, even not everything is going to be filled out on this chart, on this sheet. Even when you're level 5, and it may never be. That's just the way they just leave it for you to write in it, basically. Okay, so below is touch. Touch AC. I'm going to say this really carefully so you don't get freaked out about this. Touch AC is when you only include your... Hold on. It's when you only include your dexterity modifier to your AC. So sometimes when you're cast with a spell like Scorching Ray or something, then that applies to it. Let me find the page real quick so I can read it to you. I don't want anyone to get confused about it because it's going to come up a lot. It's really going to come up a lot. Let me find it. Sorry, guys. Okay, so we are on touch. So, okay. Some attacks that are touch completely disregard your armor, your shields, and your natural armor. The aggressor only needs to touch you. So in these attacks, the person will roll a touch attack against you, and your AC doesn't include any armor, shield, or natural armor bonus. The only other modifiers... The only other modifiers that apply to figuring out your total touch AC is your dexterity modifier, a deflection bonus, which none of you have, so forget that, and your size modifier. So if you're a human, your size modifier is 0, and then let's say you have a 20 dexterity total score. So your touch AC is going to be 5. Okay? 5. It's not supposed to be a big number. It's just something that is basically dissecting your total AC. Okay, so everyone understands. Touch AC is only your size modifier and your dexterity modifier. That's all it is. It's going to be a low number. Okay? So next to it, we have flat-footed. Flat-footed is exactly what it sounds like. It's in surprise rounds. Let's say you're a group of adventurers with your torches and you're going down the dungeon and you're like looking around, you're like, oh, what's this? And your light doesn't, and none of you have dark vision, and your illumination only spreads so far, and suddenly a skeleton jumps out and takes a swing at you. You're caught flat-footed. you're caught surprised. You know, you're not on your heels, you're not braced for anything, you're just standing straight. You get hit. You don't apply any dexterity to your AC in this case. It's literally just the armor that you're wearing. So I mean, obviously you can put that together. It's really not hard. It's just you're caught flat-footed. You're just caught surprised. You're caught standing down. It's just your AC. This will come up a lot. So touch AC and flat-footed AC will come up a lot. Classes like the Rogue or the Barbarian have Uncanny Dodge, which as their natural abilities, passive abilities. So for them, they are never caught flat-footed. But for you clerics, bards, sorcerers, wizards, druids, you guys can be caught flat-footed. Fighters, you can be caught flat-footed. So that's what those two mean, okay? So remember, touch AC is your size modifier and your dexterity modifier only. It's going to be a low number. It's going to be a single-digit number. Unless you're, like, you know... No, it should always be a single-digit number. It's not a big number. Flat-footed is your armor bonus and your shield bonus. It's literally the armor that you're wearing. Okay? And of course, just to end this part, because next to it is a long horizontal rectangle that says modifiers. That's what I'm going to say to now, then we're going to end this part. Because touch AC and flat-footed AC and AC itself are big three variables to always keep in mind for your class. It's not just simply, hey, your AC is this. There's ways to dissect your AC. Certain feats that you take, sort of like how before I said dexterity to your damage rolls, you take the weapon finesse feat. You can do stuff like that. Feats can variate your character greatly, so you can take feats that make you never be caught flat-footed like the Barbarian and the Rogue. It's not called Uncanny Dodge, but it's called Combat Reflexes. You'll put that in that long horizontal box. So remember, I'm just telling you how to fill out this character sheet simply, naturally. But once you get it filled out, you can look into feats, and then you can go back and erase and go, oh, I'm going to pick the Improve Initiative. I'm going to pick the Never Caught Flat-Footed. I'm going to pick the something. But I'm just giving it to you naturally, okay? So that's touch AC and flat-footed AC and regular AC. I know it's a lot. It's basically three things. It's just AC, your total AC, your size, your dex, your armor, your shield. There's touch AC, which is just your size modifier, your dexterity modifier. Then there's flat-footed, which is just your armor and your shield. And that's it. Okay? That's it. So, touch AC, size modifier, dexterity modifier. Flat-footed AC is just the armor and the shield. That's all. Okay? Alright, guys. Alright, so going down the list still, we get to your saving throws. Those three black boxes say Fortitude, Reflex, and Will. So, in 5e, we had Charisma saving throws, Strength, Dex, all that stuff. In this game, there's three. Fortitude is your Constitution saving throw. Reflex is your Dexterity saving throw. And Will is your Wisdom saving throw. There are no longer Intelligence saving throws or Charisma saving throws. Those are out. So, all three have boxes, and we'll go one by one. So total is your total. Next to the equal sign is called base save. Now, I'm sure you're like, what the fuck is base save? Base save, and again, this is going to be kind of difficult for you guys who don't have books, because there's going to be a time where you really need a book. Let's go with just the first class in the book, a Barbarian. So on page 32, okay, under saving throws where it says base save, the barbarian, page 32, you see that big ass chart. It says level, base attack bonus, fort save, reef save, and will save. Your base save for barbarian, we're using barbarian for an example, your base save for fortitude, reflex, and will at level 1, it has it. I mean, this is the only way you can do it unless you use the Google, and I don't think it has it. You're going to find a lot of your stats here. You need the book, unfortunately. I don't know if Paizo, the website, has it. It might. I haven't done a lot of research through it because I kind of was like, I'm just going to get the book and figure it out that way. So, the base save for level 1 for a barbarian, the fortitude, is +2. So you'd write +2 in there. Next to it, it says ability modifier. So that would be your constitution, and a barbarian should have a higher constitution, so he'll add his number there. Magic modifier, going to leave that blank. You don't have any magic modifier as of right now. Miscellaneous modifier, sometimes races have that, like gnomes and elves are like, they have pluses to charms, dwarves have plus to poison. So remember, miscellaneous modifier could be a feat, it could be a race, it could be something. Always one of the three. It's never a secret thing I'm not telling you about. It's always one of three things. So a lot of you are going to leave miscellaneous modifier boxes, no matter where it is on this page, blank. Or a 0 if you just want to be a perfectionist to fill everything out. The next to that miscellaneous modifier is temporary modifier, which again, I don't know if I said, is when you have a spell that's cast on you, temporary modifier, that lasts longer than 24 hours. So let's say you're blessed by a priest. Before you go out on this adventure, you're going to be going to the poison swamps of Bellatrix, and he casts this spell on you that lasts 72 hours. It gives you a +2 to your fortitude saves for poison. You'll write that +2 there. And in this giant big rectangle upright box at the very end, it says modifiers. You can just sort of jog a note down. It says blessing, so you can remember that you put it there. So reflex save, going back to the middle row of boxes. Total base save. Remember, you need to look into your class sheet. So barbarian, page 32, his reflex save at level 1 is 0. It's very normal to have level 1 0 base saves. And again, ability, magic, miscellaneous, temporary, modifier, will is total. The base save for a barbarian is again 0. He's not, of course a barbarian at level 1 is not going to have a clear mind. When he rages, he's just going at it, okay? So now, after those 3 saving throws, we get down to something called base attack bonus. It's a longer black box. Base attack bonus is your proficiency bonus from 5e, sort of. In Pathfinder, remember, Pathfinder is an older version of Dungeons and Dragons. So proficiency bonus in 5e kind of just like sums up everything. But in this game, there's multiple proficiency bonuses. So your base attack bonus is, again, on your class sheet. So for our barbarian, the example we're using, it's on page 32. It says on the first line, your level, your base attack bonus, your fort save, your reflex save, your will save, and then the special that you get at that level. So I already said the fortitude save, the base save for fortitude for a barbarian was +2. The base save reflex for a barbarian level 1 was 0, and will was 0. So now for his base attack bonus, he has a barbarian on the sheet, he has +1. So you're just going to write +1 in there. Base attack bonus is on the class sheet. It's normal to not have a +1 in the beginning, especially if you're a wizard, you're a sorcerer. You're obviously not going to be fighting physically. At least you're not geared towards it. Fighters, paladins, and barbarians excel at base attack bonuses faster than any other class. Next to it is a black box that says spell resistance. Leave that blank. I don't think I'm going to use spell resistance. I'll talk more about that tomorrow, about what that is. Okay? So I'm going to end this video right here because the next one is something that is different. You've never heard of it. It's sort of like the touch and the flat-footed. You gotta take a minute, maybe replay the next video a couple times and think about it, okay?